Lads, welcome back to Fusion YGO, and today we're bringing you a different kind of deck. This is playing on a budget, so to speak, and we've built a deck that is really fun. It can succeed against competitive top-tier decks, and its biggest threat in the meta, which are Orcust and Thunder Dragon, just got hit a little bit. Thunder Dragon being no longer a major threat to it, and Orcust still being a threat, but it's capable of playing around those threats and making it so Orcust struggles. So welcome to the creepy and the crawly. Welcome to a Krawler deck profile, and we're going to jump right into it with the monsters. Starting off with just the monsters, it's a very low monster count because we still run a certain card in this deck. So we're going to start off with triple copies of Krawler Receptor. Receptor is the only 3 of monster in the deck because it is your Rhoda for every Krawler monster in the deck, which there's a good amount of, and it allows you to really just abuse these cards and go off. So its flip effect is the Rhoda effect, and then all Krawlers, all the little Krawlers, have the same secondary effect. When they are removed from the field by an opponent's card effect, you get to search your deck for 2 and set them. So you get free resources off of that, and there's a way to manipulate your opponent into activating their effects. Next up, we're going to go in order of strongest to weakest. Next up is 1 copy of Glyle. You can actually bump this to 2 by cutting one of the other ones if you so desire. Except for the very last one, but Glyle lets you special summon 1 Krawler monster in face up or face down defense position from your hand or graveyard. It is not targeting, so they can't call by the graveyard your target, so to speak, because you don't target. Then 1 copy of Dendrite, which is a Foolish Burial. 1 Krawler Spine, which is just bigger Maneater Bug. 1 copy of Axon, which is MST. 1 copy of Ranveer, which adds 2 of them from your graveyard to your hand, so it just recycles stuff. It's probably the weakest of them. And then last, but certainly not least, the one-sided skill drain himself, Deus Ex Krawler. Deus Ex is so powerful. It's absolutely ridiculous how good this card is. So when it's set, when it's flip effect, when it's targeted for a card effect by a card effect your opponent controls, you can flip this card face up, negate that effect. Once it's flipped face up, it negates all activated monster effects on your opponent's side of the field. So it's just absolutely mind-boggling how powerful that card is. And that's it for the monsters. 9 monsters. That's all we run. Let's go ahead and change it over to spells. Alright, and then into spell cards, we got triple copies of World Legacy Survivor. Okay, this card allows you to excavate the top 5 cards of your deck. You get to add 1 World Legacy or Krawler monster, 1 World Legacy or Krawler card from among them to your hand, and the rest go to the graveyard. So it is an insanely powerful archetype-specific card, and it works with like the World Legacy stuff, obviously. But because everything that you're searching for that you're going to be digging for is either World Legacy or Krawler, this card is just a mandatory 3 of. It's hard once per turn, but that's perfectly fine. 2 copies of World Legacy and Shadow. I was running this at 3 for a long time, and it's a dead draw. You want to dig into it, and then after you get it activated, it's great, but it conflicts with some of the other spells. World Legacy and Shadows lets you special summon in face up or face down defense position 1 additional Krawler in regards to your normal summon. And it's a field spell that boosts them all by 300 attack and defense, and when your opponent's monster battles a flip monster, it sends it to the graveyard at the end of battle. So it helps you deal with problems. 2 copies of Wormbait. This is just a free extender because nothing in your deck is level 3 or 4. So its downside doesn't mean anything to you, which is great. So Wormbait's great for that. 2 copies of Pot of Duality and 1 copy of Card of Demise. Yeah, I'm still playing Demise. Demise is super powerful no matter what point in the game you draw it, because it's basically just getting you to all of your trap cards, which is what the bulk of this deck is. I think it's 10 traps in total. 10 or 11. It's not a lot of spell cards. So in total, over half the deck is trap cards. So Demise just gets you free advantage into those. And that's going to be it for the spell, so let's go ahead and jump into traps. Alright, into trap cards. So first, it's the most powerful 5 cards in your deck. Triple copies of World Legacy's Mind Meld. So Mind Meld has 2 effects. An activated effect, and then an effect engraved. So the first effect is it changes a monster effect, one of your opponent's monster effects, to return one face-up monster your opponent controls to the hand. So it lets you manipulate your crawlers. The other effect is when your opponent link summons a monster, you can or when there's a link monster that opponents to his own, you can banish it and then summon a link monster from your graveyard. So it's pretty powerful, or any monster from your graveyard. So it just helps you Monster Reborn. 2 copies of World Legacy Pawns. Pawns lets you activate flip effects and reset them. So it shuffles your crawlers back in the deck to set them face down, or it can be used offensively to like flip Deus Ex, so your opponents lose their monster effects, or what have you. It's a really powerful card. You wanted it 2 because you want to see it, but you don't want it at 3 because it clogs at that point. Next up is the rest of the traps. So first is triple copies of Compulse. It's just a really good trap card, this format. In any format really, it just bounces a card back to the hand, so really powerful, able to be good going first or second. Triple copies of Lost Wind, because this card does work no matter what. Whenever, even if it's hit off of Survivor, you're able to reset it, so you're guaranteed to be able to use the effect, which is incredibly powerful and really helpful. Triple copies of Waking the Dragon. Okay, so I'm main decking this card for 2 reasons. One, back row deck's got a huge boost, so a lot of people are maining back row hate. If they see that you're maining this, they're going to freak out. It's not something that you should be side decking, in my opinion, in this deck. This style of deck that really wants to grind them out, this gives you a huge body that they have to try and deal with, which can be very difficult or impossible for some decks to deal with. Waking the Dragons is just a really good card. Next up is triple copies of Solemn Judgment. Judgment is just, you can run Strike as well. You can run Strike instead of Waking the Dragons. I just found that Waking the Dragons and Solemn Judgment are the perfect duo because you're able to run Compulse and Lost Wind and all this other monster hate. Then we've got 2 copies of Heavy Storm Duster because it pops back row, and finally 2 copies of Reckless Greed because drawing cards. You can scare them with a lot of different things when they see these things off of Duality, and because of Waking the Dragons, it makes them less inclined to blind shotgun your face downs or your trap cards. So that's why I run these, and now we're going to jump right into the extra deck. Alright, the extra deck. So, the extra deck has a lot of power. First up is going to be 2 copies of Krawler Qualiarch. Qualiarch gives different effects depending on the number of crawler monsters you control. I'll read them off for you so it's just verbatim. If this card is destroyed by battle or leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect, while it's in its owner's control, you can target 2 crawler monsters with different names in your graveyard and special summon them in face down defense position, and then it applies these effects. If you have 2 or more, all monsters you control gain 300 attack and defense. If you have 4 or more, your opponent's cards and effects cannot be activated during the battle phase. And if you have 6 or more, your monsters can attack directly. So Qualiarch does a lot. It's a very word-heavy card, and it's 2,000 points down twice. One of the big plays you can do is you can have 2 of the other cards and this guy with shadows, and then here in the middle. So if it's, here's your extra monster zone, and then it's got these 2 zones with the side arrows, and then Deus Ex here. You can make Deus Ex about 3,200 and deal double battle damage, attack twice. When it battles a monster, it can attack 2 monsters, deals double battle damage. It's just absolutely insane. Qualiarch just opens up a lot of avenues of play for the deck. Next up, this guy makes them so the ones that they point to can't be Krawler Neurogos. Neurogos prevents them from being able to be destroyed by battle the monsters he points to. It gives 300 attack and defense to all monsters that it points to, and Neurogos has the same primary effect, the summoning 2 from the graveyard face down. when it leaves the field due to battle or something. So it gives a lot of protection and continuing game state. 2 copies of Synapsis. That's the one that deals double battle damage. I think this is the one. Nirogos is the one. Yeah, Nirogos is doubled battle damage, and then this one allows you to attack twice. So Synapsis is absolutely insane in that regard. So these 3 cards are the only Krawler extra deck monsters that we run. There's 6 of them. It's a good chunk of it, but it allows you a lot of space to be able to run different cards in the extra deck. So let's move these to the side, and let's go to the rest of the extra deck. So 1 Inzektor Picafilina. It allows you to draw cards. It lets you tutor out stuff from the deck. It doesn't come up a lot, but it's actually pretty helpful. I have used it a few times. It has down arrows. It allows you to do stuff, but overall the card is just really powerful. It's just a good reflexive pick. And then 1 copy of Subterror Behemoth Fiendus. This is just because it requires flip monsters. It's pretty powerful, but I've actually never summoned this guy. There's just other cards in the extra deck that are better, but there are niche scenarios where this can come up. So then your Nightmare package: 1 Cerberus, 1 Phoenix, and 1 Unicorn. This is just to deal with cards, problematic monsters, all that fun stuff. 1 Borreload and 1 Boral Sword. Borreload when you're in a control state and you got big things to deal with, and then Boral Sword for dealing with threats and OTKing. Doesn't come up a lot, but it can come up. And then finally, 1 copy of Phantom Knight's Cursed Javelin, because they're all level 2s, and 1 copy of Raid Raptor Ultimate Falcon. This is your Waking the Dragon's target. Card's absolutely insane. And it's just basically punishing your opponent for playing aggressive against back row. So, alright lads. So, that's going to do it for my Krawler deck profile. I hope you guys enjoyed. This deck is a lot of fun, and it can do a lot of work depending on how you side deck. I did not showcase my side deck because it is still a work in progress, and it's so early in the format that I've got to figure out exactly what I want to run with it. But I wanted to show you guys the main deck and the extra deck so you could start tinkering with it too if you are so interested. And this is my template for how to play Krawlers in this format. Leave a like if you enjoyed this deck profile. Comment what you would do different about your deck in the future. And, above all else, don't forget to subscribe. Our goal is 1,000 subscribers by the end of this year, but the sooner, the better. So lads, thanks so much for checking us out, and we'll see you in the next one.